I don't date widows." The words landed casually, carelessly, like he was commenting on the weather. Ethan Cole leaned back in his chair, smug, smile intact, wineglass hovering midair. The upscale restaurant went quiet. Not silent, stunned. Across from him, Grace Whitman didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't explain. She slowly set her fork down. Her wedding ring, still worn, caught the light. A nearby couple exchanged looks. The waiter froze, not sure whether to step in or disappear. Ethan chuckled, unaware of the shift in the room, unaware of who he was talking to. Grace lifted her eyes. Calm, steady, unbreakable. And then she said one sentence that made Ethan's smile collapse. "Keep watching, because what happens next will change everything." Grace Whitman had learned how to survive silence. She was 36, a widow for 3 years. Her husband, Thomas Whitman, had died in a construction accident that made the local news for exactly 1 day, then disappeared. Grace never did. She rebuilt her life quietly. No bitterness, no spectacle, just strength wrapped in composure. Tonight's blind date had been arranged by a mutual friend. Ethan Cole, successful, well-dressed, loud confidence. A senior consultant at a prestigious firm, the kind of man who mistook money for depth. The restaurant was elite. White linen, soft lighting, conversations whispered, a place where status mattered. Ethan dominated the table. Stories about promotions, properties, influence. Grace listened, observed. What Ethan didn't know, what no one here knew, was that Grace wasn't just a widow. She was a former federal compliance analyst, and she never came unprepared. The waiter arrived with wine. Ethan didn't ask Grace what she preferred. He ordered for her, expensive, red, assertive, like everything else about him. "So," he said, swirling his glass, "how long has it been since—" "You know." His eyes dipped. Not sympathetic, curious, like a flaw he was inspecting. Grace answered calmly. 3 years. Ethan nodded, then smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'll be honest," he said, leaning back. "I've got standards. I don't date widows. Too much baggage. Too much history." The table went quiet. Nearby, conversations softened. Someone had heard. Grace didn't flinch. She dabbed her lips with her napkin. "Thank you for being direct," she said. Ethan relaxed, mistaking her composure for defeat. He launched into a story about a deal he'd closed that afternoon. Numbers, bonuses, dominance. Grace listened, but her phone vibrated under the table. A notification. She glanced down briefly. Then another. Across the room, a man at the bar shifted uncomfortably. He recognized Ethan. So did the couple behind him. Grace asked gently, "Ethan, do you work with Horizon Capital?" Ethan smirked. "Consulted, why?" Grace nodded. "Interesting." She took out her phone. Not dramatic. Not rushed. "I used to audit firms like Horizon," she said. "Compliance, ethics, risk exposure?" Ethan laughed. Too loud. "That sounds adorable." Grace smiled back, smaller, sharper. "You ever heard of Project Atlas?" she asked. The color drained from his face. His glass paused midair. Because Project Atlas wasn't public. It was an internal investigation. And Grace had just said its name, perfectly. The waiter stopped walking. The bar went silent. Ethan leaned forward, voice tight. "Who told you that?" Grace met his eyes for the first time that night. "No one," she said softly. "I wrote part of the report." Her phone buzzed again. This time she turned the screen toward him, and everything began to unravel. Ethan stared at the screen, not pretending anymore, not smiling. The color drained from his face in real time. On Grace's phone, emails, time-stamped, flagged. Internal memos marked confidential. His name highlighted, repeated, circled. Kickbacks, shell accounts. A silent partner he'd sworn didn't exist. Around them, the restaurant felt suspended, like the world was holding its breath. That's not real," Ethan whispered. "You can't have that." Grace didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I testified quietly," she said. "After my husband died." Ethan froze. Testified. Yes, she set the phone down between them. While you were celebrating promotions, I was rebuilding my life and finishing his work. His hand shook as he reached for his glass. Missed it. You said you don't date widows, Grace continued. Because we carry history. She leaned in now. Just enough. You're right, we do. A man from the bar stepped closer. Then another. One pulled out his phone. Recording. Ethan noticed too late. Grace, listen, he said quickly, voice cracking. We can talk about this, privately. I didn't mean... She slid one final document across the table. A sub poena. Delivered digitally. 5 minutes ago. Project Atlas just went public, she said. An hour ago, actually. The board voted. Ethan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Around them, gasps. A fork clattered to the floor. Someone whispered his name. Not with admiration. With recognition. Security approached the table. Not for Grace. For him. Mr. Carter, one said. We need you to come with us. Ethan stood too fast. His chair toppled backward. He looked at Grace, pleading now. Smaller than she'd ever seen him. You set me up, he said. Grace stood too. No, she said calmly. You exposed yourself. As he was escorted away, the restaurant erupted. Not in applause, but in stunned silence. Grace remained standing, a widow, unbowed, unbroken, holding the truth like a steady flame. The news broke before dessert menus were cleared. Ethan Carter's face filled every screen by morning, no longer framed by confidence, but by consequence. Headlines didn't soften his fall. Executive arrested in corporate fraud probe. Whistleblower widow key to exposure. Grace watched none of it at first. She sat in her small apartment, sunlight cutting across framed photos. One of her husband in a worn suit, smiling like the world was still fair. She touched the frame once, then let her hand fall. Justice, she knew, was loud after being silent for too long. Messages poured in. Strangers, colleagues, other widows. Thank you for standing. I didn't think anyone like us ever won. The restaurant where Ethan had humiliated her released a statement apologizing publicly, offering her a platform. She declined. Grace didn't need stages anymore. Weeks later, she testified openly, not shaking, not asking permission. Ethan didn't look at her this time. The court found him guilty on multiple counts. His empire unraveled in months, board seats stripped, accounts frozen, legacy rewritten in fine print. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked Grace one question over and over. Do you feel vindicated? She paused. No, she said. I feel finished. Finished hiding. Finished shrinking. Finished carrying shame that was never hers. She began speaking quietly. Community halls, universities, support groups. Not about revenge. About dignity. About how grief doesn't make you weak. How silence isn't the same as peace. How widows don't need saving. Just space to be heard. And one night, walking home alone, Grace smiled, not because life was perfect, but because she finally was. Never mistake silence for softness. Some lessons come wrapped in loss, and some women rise from it unbreakable.